Waitress sees hidden note in woman's order, follows her outside. There, on the table, was a tiny note on her order receipt. Jane's stomach flipped as she looked around the restaurant. She told her coworker to watch the kids and followed her. She searched desperately, fearing the worst. Jane couldn't stop thinking about what might happen if she hadn't seen the note or if she didn't find her in time. Only time would tell. It was just like any other day as Jane Hudson began her shift at Pizza Hut. She had worked as a waitress there for years and knew just about everyone that passed through their doors. But on this particular day, a new face appeared in the restaurant. A woman that Jane had never seen before and probably never will again. When she first entered the busy restaurant, Jane greeted her and brought her to her table. She had 2 kids with her and she seemed like a nice woman. She had a kind smile and a relaxed presence. Jane wondered if she was new to town or just passing through. But when she asked her where she was from, her answer surprised her. She said that she lived in the area for several years but had just never come to Pizza Hut before. When Jane asked her if she had another favorite spot in town, things got even stranger. She said she didn't know many places as she never really went out to eat. Although there's nothing wrong with cooking at home, Jane still found it odd that she didn't know of anywhere. In this day and age, Jane thought it was almost impossible to always cook and never enjoy a meal out with family and friends. Nonetheless, she handed her and her kids the menus and said, well, there's a first time for everything, then left with a smile. Little did Jane know, however, that this woman never went out for a reason. As they ate their meal and Jane checked that they were enjoying it, she began to notice that something was seriously wrong with the woman. She was acting strange. She kept fidgeting in her seat as a look of fear and nervousness began to sprawl across her face. Looking around, she suddenly rose and ran from the table, leaving her 2 young kids behind. What was happening? Jane walked up to her table as she watched her run outside. Then she spotted something. On the table was a note on her receipt. Her stomach flipped. She immediately told another waitress to look after the 2 kids and ran to the back of the room. She found her bag and grabbed out what she needed. Then she followed her. Jane ran out the door after the woman, but she was nowhere in sight. The car park was big and busy, she could have been hiding anywhere. She ran around the car park, searching desperately as she feared the worst. Jane couldn't stop thinking about what might happen if she hadn't seen the note or if she didn't find her in time. Jane asked anyone who passed her if they saw a woman of her description. But they all said no. Now, she seriously began to worry for her safety. But just as she began to lose hope, she spotted a woman curled up on the ground in between 2 cars. She was desperately clawing at the car door, trying to open it and get inside. To anyone else, it might have looked like she was trying to break into the car, but thanks to the note, Jane knew exactly what was happening. With no time to lose, she ran over to the terrified woman. I got you, she said as she propped her up against the side of the car. Jane panicked as she started to gasp. Jane immediately pulled up her sleeve and pulled out the pen she grabbed from her own bag. She jabbed it in the side of her arm and waited for it to take effect. The woman was deeply confused, but she soon started to calm down as her breathing began to relax. She closed her eyes as Jane called 911. What did the note say? Jane saw the tiny note at the end of the woman's receipt on the table. It highlighted that she had a nut allergy. She mustn't have known that the meal she ordered had nut paste in it. It was in a pre-made sauce, so there was no way to substitute the dish. She instantly knew that this situation was deadly as nut allergies are often serious. But there was something else. Jane was also allergic to nuts and always carried her EpiPen around with her. She raced to her bag to grab it and administered it into the woman's arm, essentially saving her life. By the time Jane found her, she was already struggling to breathe and beginning to lose consciousness. But why was she trying to get into that car? By the time the ambulance arrived, the woman had already come around. She explained to Jane that she had her own EpiPen in her car and she was trying to get inside of it. However, her allergic reaction came on so suddenly that she didn't know what was happening before it was too late. She thanked Jane for being her savior. The woman dismissed hospital care as she knew all too well what happened and felt fine again. She thanked them for responding and went back into the restaurant to reunite with her kids. However, she went nowhere near the dish and didn't press charges against the restaurant thanks to Jane's quick thinking and care.